Ladies and gentlemen, look at the pores on the inside of that beautiful bread. This is Chipotle bread. It is a recipe that I've just invented, and it is absolutely spectacular. Wait till you taste this. Chipotle, cheese, and delicious. Today I'm going to be making Chipotle bread. Now if you're wondering what Chipotle bread is, well, I can't really describe it just yet. You've seen a picture of it. It's beautiful. It's very light. The flavor is incredible. But this is a brand new recipe, something I just invented. I've looked around hard to see if there was anything else that I could find that was anywhere even remotely similar to what I've made. And the closest thing I could find were several recipes where they would chop up chipotle peppers or jalapeno peppers or whatever other kind of chili or pepper they found and put that down in the bread recipe, mixed it in, and that way you have little chunks of green chilies running through your bread. Really neat recipes, and I'm sure they have wonderful flavor, but that's not where I'm going today. Today, this is about the Chipotle, about this little guy right here. Smoky. A Chipotle, that's a jalapeno that's been smoked and dried out, and then when you rehydrate it and make a sauce from it, it gives you this beautiful brown sauce that's incredibly good tasting. So we're going to make this Chipotle bread using a sauce produced from chilies. I've got two different chilies, and I want to show you all the goodies we have back here. So let's get busy making a brand new recipe, something super special and very delicious. This is Chipotle bread. Come on. Now this wonderful bread that I'm going to show you today is made from very basic ingredients, but when combined and done just the right way, produce the most magnificent bread. First, I've got some flour back here. You don't need anything special. It's a plain all-purpose flour. I also have some cheese over here. I'm going to be using a sharp cheddar cheese. Sharp, extra sharp, something with a really snappy flavor to it is really needed for this bread. In addition, we're going to be using some olive oil. Down here I have pasilla chilies and chipotle chilies. The pasilla is actually a dried chalaca. Okay, so when you dry a chalaca, this is what you get. It's called a pasilla. And when you first when you smoke a jalapeno and then dry it, you get what we call chipotle. So that is a chipotle chili. The ones that come in the cans aren't the same thing, folks, and that's not what you need for this. You need the dried chipotle chili. This right here is what we make sauces from. Also, I have some salt, yeast, and sugar, and combined, we're going to have a fantastic bread. Now let's get into starting with our chilies, and then once we have our chili paste, we can make some bread. Now folks, I'm getting my dried chilies opened up, and I'm going to get them all measured out. This bag over here, these are those Chipotle chilies, and it's a beautiful brown chili. It's got a fairly tough skin on it and a wonderful deep smoky flavor. And while this is just a smoked jalapeno, but we're going to be measuring out 50 grams of these. And I've also got a bag full of pasilla chilies over here. These are long, dark, very rich flavored chilies, and we'll look at those here in just a little bit. But this wonderful chili and this one are going to give us such a deep flavor in this bread. It's unbelievable. So go ahead, measure out 50 grams of each. That's what you're going to be needing. Now folks, to make a good chili paste, we need to first rehydrate our chilies. So I'm going to slice each one open lengthwise and throw it into a large bowl, and I'm going to soak it in very hot water. You can go with tap water that's hot, or you can boil water, pour over these, and that will actually accelerate this process a little bit. Your chilies are going to be soaking for about an hour and a half. You can soak them longer, 2 hours if you wish, or 3. But hour and a half should get you where you need to be on this recipe. So slice these open, get them soaking, and in a little bit we'll process them. Now folks, I went ahead, took all of these and sliced them open, or sliced them in half like this, so that they would be open and exposed. Now that they're down in here, I'm going to let them soak until they are soft and plump. It'll take about an hour and a half. If you want to let them go to 2 hours, that's cool. That will give you a chili that's ready to mill. You might turn these about halfway through because the parts that are floating on top won't get saturated as well. The chilies are close to finished on their soak, so they've gotten a lot softer. They're much more pulpy on the inside, and they're ready to be milled. Earlier I mentioned we're going to mill this, and that means using a food mill that uses these little sieves. This is a small plate sieve. It's got the small holes in it, and it's the smallest sieve of a group of 3 that comes with any food mill. So you're going to want to use the small one. Now, food mill is nothing more than just basically a large open bowl with a sieve and a paddle that pushes the food through it. Now, here's the thing. You can also use a blender, but you're going to get a lot of fragments of the skin in there, and even though you try to run that through a strainer with a spatula, you're still going to get some of that fragmentation in there. So that's one way of doing this, but frankly, the food mill is going to give you the better quality, and you really need to consider using it. So I'm going to mill this out into a paste, and then we're going to cook it up. Whenever I'm doing this, I like to have a little bowl set aside just for the stems. It helps to get those out of the way. These I'll usually keep about this size or just slightly smaller. You can kind of tear them down a little if you want. If you get some seeds down in this, don't worry about it. The food mill will separate out the seeds from the pulp. Now in this case, you can just pull off what's left. Again, get rid of that stem. I want to do this to all of them. When you get your chilies in your food mill, just crank it. It doesn't take but a few minutes, and you're going to have all the paste you need underneath there. We'll end up with about a half to 3/4 of a cup of chili paste. After you have made that chili paste, then add in some water, about 3/4 of a cup. Add in your salt and mix that together. Simmer this for about 10 to 15 minutes, just enough to cook it, and then we're going to cool it back off to put it into our bread. Although this recipe can be worked easily by hand, I like to use my machine. I bought it for this, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to take my flour, place it in my mixing bowl. I'm going to dust in this yeast and the sugar, and then I'm going to just stir them in with this. And that way I have an even distribution of yeast and sugar in my flour, and from there the rest of this just goes like clockwork. Okay, do that, and then we'll be off and running with mixing everything up. I've mixed my dry ingredients together here. They're ready to go. Have your cheese ready to go, and about room temperature is good, and your olive oil at hand. I have my dough hook ready here. As soon as that chili sauce has reduced down to a paste again, and I can measure out about a cup to 9 ounces, then I'm going to mix that in here. That's what hydrates the dough, and that is what makes this magnificent bread. It is absolutely fantastic. The dishes I'm going to be cooking up my bread in are going to be these little souffle ramekins. You can do this in any kind of a dish you want, but something that needs to be mentioned, it needs to have a side on it. The dough we're making is real high hydration, and it has a tendency to flow outwards if just placed on an open pan. So you need a dish with a side on it to allow it to rise against. This is a good bread, but it does require the right approach. Now, once you've cooked it back down to a paste like this, it's thickening back up, then you can go ahead and cool it. After we cool it, then I'm going to put it into a measuring cup, measure out about a cup to 9 ounces, and then I'm going to be making my bread. We have to cool it first because we don't want to kill our yeast with a paste that's too hot, okay? Once this is down to about between 105 and 115 temperature-wise, then we can use it, and that's cool enough to put your finger in without burning yourself. Now folks, have you a bowl, either glass or ceramic, with some olive oil in the bottom of it, and you want to coat the sides a bit with that olive oil. That you're going to use to rise that dough in. You're going to need that ready to go. We have all of our ingredients ready to go now. I just need to get the dough hook on this and start mixing in my other ingredients. And I'm going to alternate between these, starting with the olive oil, a little cheese, and some of the sauce. Then I'll work in more of each. Now, when you're mixing this up, you're going to notice it will not form itself into a ball. It's going to kind of form into a wet, nasty mess that just works its way around in there. Not a problem, but let it go at it. So, as you can see, we have our dough down here in the bowl. I'm going to let that rise, and I'm going to let it triple in bulk. So as soon as it's completely filling that bowl, we're then going to punch it down, and I'm going to make smaller balls with it, and then we're going to put those down in our dishes to rise a second time. The initial rise is finished on this. Look at that. It has tripled in bulk. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch this down, and then I'm going to measure it out into even quantities to put in these little ramekins. That way I can make nice little buns with these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the weight of this, and then once I've weighed it, I'll know exactly how much to make each of the small buns. Now folks, I went ahead and divided my dough out into equal quantities, put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of each ramekin, and set the dough down in there in that olive oil. The olive oil is important because the dough is going to push it up the sides of the dish as it expands. It will help to keep it from sticking to the dish after it is cooked, and it adds a wonderful texture and flavor. It just can't be beat. Now, if you'll notice, that dough looks really dark. It is, but the bread doesn't have a really heavy flavor. It has kind of a sweet flavor with a beautiful savory side to it. We give these time to rise, and this needs to triple in bulk, so these cups are going to be filled by the time they're done. At the first part of it, I'm going to rise with plastic wrap over it to keep them moist and fresh. And when they're pressing against that plastic wrap, I'll take it off, let them rise a little bit more, then we cook them up. Folks, I have just removed the plastic. As you can see, these are rising up beautifully. This has only been 30 minutes of rising in these ramekins. They're doing wonderful. I have the oven preheating at 350 degrees. You're going to need it at that temperature and ready to go with your rack in the center. That's where these are going to go. At this point, handle very gently. You do not want to deflate your bread. And as soon as it rises up, so the shoulder of the bread is near the top of those ramekins, I'm going to put it in the oven. We've pretty much tripled in bulk at this point. It's just a matter of getting them cooked. Our oven is preheated. Let's get these on the center rack. Remember, handle with care and delicacy. That beautiful bread that we have just mixed up and is baking up, well, that is a simple recipe, folks, and the ingredients quantities are as follows. The flour, I used 2 1/4 cup all-purpose flour. On that olive oil, anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil is going to be more than enough in the bread, and you're going to need a little bit in the dish that you bake it in when you're rising it the second time, because you don't want a whole lot of stick problem, and that remedies that. Our cheese, that's 4 ounces of grated sharp cheddar cheese. I have 50 grams of pasilla chilies, 50 grams of chipotle chilies, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 package of dry yeast, which is equivalent to 2 1/4 teaspoons dried yeast. That's a fast-acting yeast, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. One magnificent recipe right there. My bread is now out of the oven. They are absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to transfer these to a cooling rack. I'm going to give these a few minutes to cool and then take them out of those ramekins. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just sliced this open, and take a look at the texture in this. It's got a beautiful spring to it, beautiful texture, The large pores, that very coarse, what they call the crumb, is the coarse graining in it. And beautiful, beautiful on this bread. It is so light, so delicate, and yet at the same time just wonderful. The quality couldn't be better. Oh yeah, this is a fantastic recipe. Ladies and gentlemen, again, look at the texture. The crumb is perfect on this. This is delicious. Man, like I said before, harmonious flavors. A little sweet from the bread, savory from that chili and the cheese also. This lightest hint in the background warms your mouth slightly. It's not hot hot, it's just warm enough to say, hey, this really is Chipotle. It's good. That makes for such a good sandwich. A burger, talk about the world's best hamburger buns right there. That'll be something that will surprise anybody at any party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this. I really appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing to my subscribers. Your help is tremendous, and I really appreciate it. The subscriptions are more appreciated than you can imagine. It helps me with drive, and it lets me know that I have something that's worth viewing. Thank you very much for doing that. Also, if you like the video, if you like this recipe, click that like button. Drop some comments down below, and I'm going to read those. Trust me on that one. Thank you very much for watching this recipe. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I have another thing going on also. It's my Patreon, and that, oh, there it is. Patreon.com/Stuart Trotter. If you would take a look at that, see what I'm doing there, find out about my photography in addition to my cooking. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great recipe and it's worth the effort to pull it off. You need to try this. If you have any doubts, please watch the tutorial. That's going to be the episode right after this, and it's going to give you any answers that you're going to need on this recipe. Thank you very much for watching, and folks, you have a good day. Bye-bye.